My name is Jasmine. I'm 28. The Mercedes arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, and I watched the delivery driver back it into my driveway like I was watching my own life change colors. Pearl white, clean lines, mine. No loans co-signed by anyone. No, "Are you sure about this?" from family group chats. Just me. 7 years of working 60-hour weeks as a senior marketing director, and a car I'd earned. I stood in my garage, the one I'd renovated myself, concrete floors I'd sealed, shelving I'd installed, and I ran my hand along the hood. Cold. Real. I took a photo, not for Instagram, but just to prove to myself it was true. That night, my brother Marcus called. Not to congratulate, to ask how much I'd spent. When I didn't answer, he switched tactics. "That's irresponsible, you're showing off. Mom's worried you're making bad choices." I hung up. The next morning, I opened my garage door and the breath left my body. Spray paint, blue and black, vulgar.
3 words: selfish, ungrateful bitch. My hands shook, not from anger yet, from violation. He'd been here, in my space, at night, with a can in his hand, writing his resentment on my property like he owned it. The security camera I'd installed last month, motion activated, crystal clear, had caught everything. 43 seconds of him in his red hoodie, his face visible when he'd looked up at the garage light. 43 seconds of premeditation. I didn't cry. I didn't call him, I didn't call the police. I went inside, sat at my laptop, and opened Facebook. The video was short, just long enough. I captioned it simply, "Some people can't stand to see you rise. They'd rather knock you down. Here's what my brother did to my home because I bought a car I earned." Then I posted it. Within 2 hours, my phone began to ring. Mom called first. Her voice was small, fractured. "Jasmine, take it down. Please. He's your brother." I was sitting in my car, in the driveway, engine off, hands on the steering wheel. He spray-painted my garage door, Mom, with insults, in the middle of the night, like a coward. "I know, baby, I know, but what?" Silence, the kind that means she was choosing him over me, and we both knew it. "He's struggling," she finally said. "He lost his job. He's depressed. This isn't who he is." I closed my eyes. "He's exactly who he is, and I'm done protecting that." She cried. I stayed quiet. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't break us both further. By evening, Marcus's friends had started commenting on the post. Defensive, attacking my character instead of addressing what he'd done. "You're cruel for humiliating him like this. Family business shouldn't be public. You think you're better than everyone now that you have money." My phone buzzed. A text from my aunt. "Your mother is devastated. Please take this down before it gets worse." Before it gets worse. As if the violation hadn't already happened. As if his actions weren't the first domino. I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled through the comments, hundreds now, and watched something shift. Women started sharing their own stories. Brothers who'd sabotaged them. Family members who'd punished their success. Sisters who'd been told to be smaller, quieter, less. One comment made me stop. "I needed to see someone do this. Thank you for not protecting him." I read it 3 times. That night, Marcus texted me directly. No apology. Just, "You've destroyed my reputation. Mom won't even look at me. I hope you're happy." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I blocked his number. The video had 47,000 views. By day 3, the video had 312,000 views. Local news outlets were calling. Local woman's viral post sparks debate about family loyalty versus accountability. I didn't call them back. I didn't need to. The algorithm was doing the work, not because of sensationalism, but because the truth was loud enough on its own. What I didn't expect was my father. He showed up at my house on Thursday evening, unannounced. I hadn't seen him in 3 years, not since he'd told me my ambition was unladylike, and that I'd die alone if I kept prioritizing work. We'd been careful strangers since then, obligatory birthday texts, nothing more. He stood on my porch in a gray coat, looking smaller than I remembered. I almost said no. Instead, I let him inside. He walked through my living room slowly, taking in the details. The art I'd curated, the plants I'd kept alive, the space I'd built. His eyes stopped on the framed photo of my car in the driveway. "I watched the video," he said quietly, sitting on my couch without being invited. "Multiple times." I waited. "What your brother did was inexcusable." He paused, and I could see something working behind his eyes. A calculation, a reckoning. "But what you did after... Jasmine, I need you to understand something. When you posted that video, you weren't just calling out Marcus. You were telling everyone in this family that you won't be silenced anymore." My chest tightened. "Your mother," he continued, "she's been protecting him his whole life, excusing him, and now she's furious with you because you forced her to stop." He looked at me directly. "That's not your fault. That's hers." Something in me cracked open, not the kind that breaks you, but the kind that lets light through. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I should have been for a long time." He left after an hour. We didn't hug. But as he walked to his car, he turned back and nodded. The video reached 890,000 views that night. The garage door stayed vandalized for exactly 1 week. I could have had it repainted immediately. I could have erased the evidence, moved on, let the wound heal quietly. Instead, I left it there, those blue and black letters screaming from my driveway like a monument to what happens when you stop apologizing for your own success. My therapist asked me why during our session on Friday. "Because," I said, "if I cover it up, I'm telling myself it didn't happen. And if I tell myself it didn't happen, I'm back to being the person who absorbs other people's rage and calls it love." She nodded. No judgment, just recognition. That same day, Marcus's ex-girlfriend, someone I'd never met, sent me a DM. Her name was Tasha. She'd seen the video and recognized him immediately. She wrote, "He did something similar to me. Destroyed my things when I wouldn't lend him money. I reported it to the police, but he apologized and his family convinced me to drop it. Watching you not back down, it made me realize I shouldn't have either." I read her message 5 times. Then I responded, "Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry that happened to you." She replied within minutes, "Don't apologize. You gave me permission to be angry." By Saturday, 3 more people had reached out with nearly identical stories. Marcus's pattern wasn't random rage. It was calculated punishment. He sabotaged people who wouldn't enable him. He destroyed things that belonged to people he envied. And when confronted, his family had always smoothed it over, apologized on his behalf, asked the victims to be the bigger person. No one had ever refused. On Sunday morning, I hired a contractor, not to paint over the vandalism, but to document it professionally. High-resolution photos, measurements, everything archived. Then I had the door repainted, but I kept copies of every angle of what he'd done. I sent him a message. "I've documented everything. This is my property. What you did was destruction of property. I'm choosing not to press charges. But know that I could. And I won't be silent about it." For the first time, I wasn't asking permission to be angry. The cease and desist letter arrived on Wednesday. Marcus's attorney, a tired-looking man named Richard Chen, who clearly didn't want to be there, had written it on behalf of my brother. The language was aggressive, threatening, designed to intimidate, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, harassment, demand for immediate removal of the video and all associated content. I read it twice, then I laughed. Actually, laughed. Then I called my own attorney. Her name was Patricia Okonkwo, and she'd been waiting for this. She reviewed the letter in 15 minutes and sent Marcus's attorney a response that was polite, thorough, and absolutely devastating. The video was factual documentation of a crime. Posting it was protected speech. The only damages Marcus could claim were the consequences of his own actions. And if he wanted to pursue this further, Patricia would be delighted to file a counterclaim for destruction of property, with the security footage as evidence. Patricia ended with a line that made me smile. "My client is not interested in settlement. She's interested in accountability." The calls from family stopped. The texts trickled away. My mother sent one last message, "I hope you're happy now," and I didn't respond. Some silences are cleaner than words. What I didn't expect was what happened next. A woman named DeAndre reached out through Instagram. She ran a podcast called Reclaim, and she wanted to interview me about the video, about family dynamics, about what it costs to stop protecting people who hurt you. Her audience was 400,000 strong, mostly women between 22 and 40, exactly the demographic that had resonated with my post. I said yes. The interview aired 2 weeks later, and it changed everything. Not because it made me famous, though it did give me 180,000 new followers, but because it gave me a language for what I'd done. I wasn't being cruel, I wasn't airing dirty laundry. I was refusing to participate in a system that punished women for success and rewarded men for sabotage. The video now had 4.2 million views. Marcus hadn't posted anything in 18 days. 3 months later, I received a package at my office. It was small, wrapped in brown paper, no return address. My hands hesitated before opening it. I'd learned to be cautious with unexpected deliveries. Inside was a watch, vintage, Seiko, beautiful in its simplicity. The note, in handwriting I recognized but had never seen apologize before, read, "Jasmine, I sold my PlayStation and my laptop to afford this. It's not an apology. I don't deserve forgiveness for what I did. It's an acknowledgement that you were right to refuse protecting me. Mom finally told me the truth. She said you posted the video not to humiliate me, but to break a cycle. She said I've been punishing people my whole life because I was punished, and you stopped letting me. I'm in therapy now, real therapy, not the kind where I make excuses. I'm also working with a lawyer to pay restitution for the garage door and any other damages I've caused. I know you don't have to forgive me. I'm not asking you to. But I needed you to know that I'm finally taking responsibility for myself instead of blaming the world. The watch belonged to Grandpa. I think you should have it. Marcus." I sat very still at my desk, the watch cold in my palm. I didn't cry. Not exactly. But something in my chest loosened. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But the possibility of it, someday. That evening, I posted a final update on Facebook. Just one photo, the watch on my wrist, the time showing 3:47, the exact time Marcus had spray-painted my garage door. The caption read, "Growth looks like accountability." For him, for me, for all of us. I didn't mention his letter. I didn't glorify his effort. I simply acknowledged that sometimes the person you're fighting against is also fighting to become someone different. The comments were mixed. Some people felt I'd betrayed the narrative. Others understood. I muted notifications and wore the watch anyway. 6 months after the video, I was invited to speak at a women's empowerment conference in Atlanta. The topic was Reclaiming Your Narrative, When Family Becomes the Obstacle. I almost declined. The idea of standing in front of 400 people and dissecting my family's dysfunction felt exposing in a way the viral video never had. But Patricia encouraged me. DeAndre sent me a voice message saying I had something to say that women needed to hear. So I went. The green room was sterile and bright. I sat in a makeup chair while someone named Vincent applied foundation, and I watched my reflection transform into something polished, camera-ready. I barely recognized myself. On stage, the questions came rapid-fire. Did you regret posting the video? Do you speak to your brother now? How do you handle the guilt? I answered each one slowly, carefully, truthfully. No, I didn't regret it. Yes, Marcus and I texted occasionally, brief, cautious exchanges about neutral topics. The guilt had dissolved the moment I realized guilt was just another form of control, and I was done being controlled. But the question that stopped me came from a woman in the third row. She was maybe 50, with silver streaks in her hair and a tremor in her voice. Did you ever consider that protecting your family was actually protecting yourself? The room went silent. I thought about my mother, still struggling to accept that love sometimes means letting people face consequences. I thought about my father, finally proud of me after 30 years of disappointment. I thought about Marcus, slowly building a life where he wasn't the villain in everyone else's story. Yes, I finally said. I think protecting them was protecting a version of myself I didn't want to be anymore. The version that was small, quiet, ashamed of her own success. The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. After the speech, 17 women gave me their contact information. They wanted to talk about their own families, their own moments of refusal. I took every number. 1 year later, I stood in my driveway on an October morning, exactly 12 months since the Mercedes arrived. The garage door was pristine now, painted a soft gray. No trace of what Marcus had done remained visible. But I kept the original photos archived on my computer, backed up in 3 separate places. Not as evidence anymore, but as a reminder of the moment I decided my success wasn't negotiable. The video had been viewed 12.3 million times. It had spawned think pieces, podcast episodes, a documentary filmmaker's interest. My name was attached to something larger than myself now, a conversation about accountability, family loyalty, and the cost of silence. Marcus had graduated from his therapy program. He was working as a junior accountant, living in an apartment across town, and we'd had lunch twice. Not comfortable yet. Maybe never comfortable, but honest. He'd apologized not with words, but with changed behavior, which I'd learned was the only apology that mattered. My mother had started her own therapy. We were rebuilding, carefully, brick by brick, without the weight of his rage between us. My father called every Sunday now, asking about my work, my life, my dreams. We were learning each other as adults. The Mercedes gleamed in the morning light. 10 years of dreams made metal. I placed my hand on the hood, the same gesture from that Tuesday a year ago, and felt the warmth of the sun absorbed into the paint. This time, I didn't need to take a photo to prove it was real. DeAndre was releasing a documentary about my story next month. Patricia had fielded 3 book offers, but none of that mattered as much as the quiet certainty I felt standing here, alone, in the space I'd created. I'd refused to be small for someone else's comfort. I'd chosen myself. And the world had listened. I turned off the garage light, locked the door, and drove toward whatever came next.